Hey guys, thank you for coming back on my channel. Before we get started, I just want to mention that my channel is not monetized and I like to keep it that way. If you do, however, find this content valuable, I'd love for you to support me over on Patreon, and you can also support me over on PayPal. Your donations are very important to us and they help keep these studies possible. Thank you for donating, and thank you for watching.
To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. It is because there is no light in them. It is because there is no light in them.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Obasi, back again with another challenging Bible study, but not so much so. It will be a Bible study because I need to correct a false teacher. I have a playlist of false teachers. You guys love those, and by love, I mean I get a lot of hate comments on them. I've done Robert Breaker, I've done Joel Osteen, and some other main preachers, but I get a ton of requests on YouTube preachers. One of that being one of my all-time favorites, and I'm being extremely sarcastic, is this man. I don't know his name, Dr. Kim. The probably worse than Robert Breaker, this guy. Lots of views, 340,000. He says real Bible believers. Does not know what he's talking about whatsoever. Every false teacher has an ounce of accuracy. Every lie has truth in it. It needs to be convincing. So we can't go on that. Things like this, videos like this, are stunning to me, how these people are considered preachers and don't take time to read the context, study Mediterranean culture, study Jewish idioms, ancient idioms, all the things that go with the Bible, but in this case, simply context. Missing the context. So he's talking here about fornication, and he brings up this verse. So I want to watch this video with you guys together, and then I'm going to explain and show you how absolutely he's wrong and absolutely detrimental to the church, to the community, to whoever is listening to him. So here we go.
Notice what is very interesting, what is tied to something as a sexual sin is first your dressing. Your dressing. And that'll be found at Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 15 through 16. But thou didst trust in thine own what? Beauty, and playedst the harlot because of thy renown, and pourest out thy fornications on everyone that passed by. So everyone who's around this person is affected by her sensual or sexual atmosphere. Why? Because of her appearance. You see that? Look at verse 16. And of thy garments thou didst take, and deckest thy high places with divers colors, and playedst the harlot thereupon. The like things shall not come, neither shall it be so. You see how the Bible ties the sexual sin to a sexual atmosphere, to your dressing? This is why we take dressing very seriously in this church. Now, my parents told me this. They told me that the number one thing they ever had a problem in the church that they had to repeat, which was tiresome, which I didn't understand until I became a pastor, was dressing. And my mom told me this. My mom told me women are really bad at that one. Now, if you don't believe me, Ezekiel 16, was it a male gender or a female gender? All right. So you women got to watch out how you dress.
Okay. So all the women watching this video, watch out how you dress. So you cannot dress
inappropriately.
Now, keep in mind, so right here next, we're going to talk about two things. Keep in mind, the women and the men dressed extremely similar, both of which wore tunics, both of which had really the only difference in men and women's clothing during that time of culture was colors. Colors and maybe some design was what really differentiated the men and the women. With that being said, Ezekiel 16, 15 to 16 has absolutely nothing to do with how women dress or men dress at all, nor does it have to do with sexual sin at all. So we're going to pull this up together and we're going to read it, and I'm going to go through it with you guys. So I got it pulled up over here on the screen here, and we'll read it together, and we're going to start in verse 1. Again, the word of the Lord came on to me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations. Who? Her. Who? Who's her? We need to define who she is, because she is related down in the 15-16 content that he's talking about. Jerusalem, the people of Israel, right? it's not a woman. It's not a woman dressing sexually, whatever that means, because that's a cultural thing to begin with. Anyway, and say, thus saith the Lord God unto Jerusalem, thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother a Hittite. And as for thy nativity, in the day thou was born, thy navel was not cut, neither was thou washed in water to supple thee. Thou wast not salted at all, nor swaddled at all. None I pitied thee to do any of these things unto thee, to have compassion upon thee, but thou wast cast out in the open field to the loathing of thy person in the day that thou wast born. And when I passed by thee and saw thee polluted in thine own blood, I said unto thee when thou was in thy blood, live. Yea, I said unto thee when thou was in thy blood, live. He says this twice. Now, this might be hard if you're new into the Bible, that is extremely hard to understand. So don't feel stupid and don't feel bad. This is Israel, the people, a city or population, particularly Israel, parts of Israel when it's divided. We got northern Israel, southern Judah, things like this is always referred to as a she. It is referred to us as the church, as the body, the church, the people, the believers of God are his wife. We're referred to as a she. Whether you're a male or not, if you're a believer, you're a she, you're the wife of Christ. It is an idiom. This is expressing an idiom. This is saying here, the people of Israel, you had no one to pity you or to save you. Okay? God stepped in and decided to save you. The people of Israel. I have caused thee to multiply as in the bud of the field, and thou hast increased and waxen great because of God. And thou art come to excellent ornaments. Thy breasts are fashioned, and thy hair is grown, whereas thou wast naked and bare. Meaning she has now went from a small woman and matured, but is still in need of God. Now when I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee and entered into the covenant with thee, saith the Lord God, and thou becomest mine. And this is an ancient Jewish culture thing. This was done in Ruth as well, where he spread his skirt over her. Again, his skirt. Men and women wore the same thing over there. It has nothing to do with how women dress. And dress is strictly cultural. Then washed, and when we're talking about, since we're on the topic, I can go into more depth here, but we're trying to get through this. Talking about dress and about appearance and about clothing in the Bible is a strictly spiritual thing. Put on Christ, put on the breastplate of righteousness, put on Jesus is what we say, a wolf in sheep's clothing. What does that mean? It means character. It is not something that is physically on you. Okay, and we have to be very mindful of that. Then washed I thee with water, yea, I thoroughly washed away the blood from thee, and I anointed thee with oil. I clothed thee also with broidered work, and showed thee the badger's skin, and I girded thee about with fine linen, and covered thee with fine silk. So here, in this verse, it's very important, because down here, in the verse here, where Dr. Kim says that she apparently, some sensual woman was on the road, and God clothed her to look like this. It's an idiom. All the things they have are from God. God decked them out in these ornaments. God gave them wealth. God gave them power. God gave them whatever it is that they have. In 1 Corinthians, it says that, what do you have that someone else doesn't? What makes you different from another individual? Nothing, because God gave it to you, and that's what causes you not to boast, because whatever you have isn't yours. It's what God gave you. So right here, God clothed this woman. It's not a woman, it's Israel, as we mentioned before here, as the Bible tells us up here. But if we're going with Kim's theology, okay, if we're going with Kim's theology, it looks as though God clothed her that way, doesn't it? Which is another way to refute it. So let's continue. I decked thee also with ornaments, and put bracelets upon thy hands, and a chain on thy neck. So if you're going to go with Dr. Kim's theology, that means God dressed her as a whore? No, that's not what's happening here. And I put a jewel on thy forehead, and earrings in thy ears, and a beautiful crown upon thy head. This is idiomatic language. Thou was Thus thou wast decked with gold and silver, and thy raiment was of fine linen and silk and broidered work. Thou didst eat fine flour and honey and oil, and thou wast exceedingly beautiful, and thou didst prosper into a kingdom. And thy renown went forth among the heathen for thy beauty. For it was perfect, though my comeliness which I had put upon thee, saith the Lord. But thou didst trust in thy own beauty, and playedst the harlot because of the renown, and pouredst out the fornications on every one that passed by. His it was. And of thy garments thou didst take, and deckest thy high places with divers colors, and playest the harlot thereupon. The like things shall not come, neither shall it be so. Thou hast also taken thy fair jewels of my gold and my silver. How God decked Israel. The things that God gave Israel and told Israel to live. It is his people, it's Jerusalem, it's his covenant, which I had given thee. And madest to thyself images of men, and didst commit whoredom with them. And tookest thou broidered garments, and coveredst them, and thou hast set mine oil and my incense before them. And meat, which also I gave thee, fine flour and oil and honey, wherewith I fed thee, thou hast even set it before them for a sweet savor, and thus it was, saith the Lord God. Moreover, thou hast taken thy sons and thy daughters, whom thou hast borne unto me, and thou hast sacrificed them unto them to be devoured. Is this of thy whoredoms a small matter, that thou hast slain my children and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them? And this is talking about a ritual in the shrines, okay? This is talking about, it's using, Ezekiel is using intense language for the reader, because it's a disgusting sin. So when you read this, it's disgusting. It's unappealing to the reader, as it should be. More so than unappealing. It's diabolical and disgusting, because that is trying to relay how big of a sin this was. So you gotta be careful with commentators like this, but we'll continue in this chapter. That thou hast slain my children and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them, and in all thine abominations and thy whoredoms thou hast not remembered the days of thy youth, when thou were naked and bare, and was polluted in thy blood. And it came to pass after all thy wickedness, woe, woe unto thee, saith the Lord God, that thou hast also built onto the eminent place, and hast made thee an high place in every street. Thou hast built thy high place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, and hast opened thy feet to every one that passed by, and multiplied thy whoredoms. Thou hast also committed fornication with the Egyptians, thy neighbors, great of flesh, and has increased thy whoredoms to provoke me to anger. This is talking about them going after other gods. This is talking about that. This is not talking about a woman dressed like a whore and luring people to sin. That is not what this is talking about. And it's absolutely not talking about women dressing inappropriately, as Kim says. It's absurd. He goes on to say,
this is why we don't believe opposite, because intimately touching is inappropriate. That's why when you're dating, we don't believe in kissing. We believe in kissing until marriage. We don't believe in any form of inappropriate touching. Intimate touching. That's what 1 Corinthians 7:1 shows. Why? Because all of that love is reserved for marriage.
Okay, that's not true. So right here it says 1 Corinthians 7:1. I have a whole paper on this chapter on my website. It is very extensive Bible notes. And let's go over there really quick. 1 Corinthians. First Corinthians 7. Paul is answering questions here, okay? This verse right here is not a command of the Lord. It is not. Paul is answering questions. He's saying, now concerning the things that you wrote to me. First question. See the column right here? Is good for a man not to touch a woman. They are asking what to do in the state of all their persecution, whether they should marry, whether they should plan for a wedding. Being betrothed is typically, betrothal in the Jewish time is similar to what an engagement is now. And having sex during that time was considered, if you bore a child during your betrothal, it was considered valid. It was considered a valid child in that marriage. And the betrothal time took no more, give or take, 12 months. So approximately a year. They are asking what to do in this moment. Now, I'm not going to get into that. There's going to be tons of questions on this chapter. But Kim here is saying that you can't intimately touch. It is good for a man not to touch a woman. How are you going to assert that? There's no context here. He absolutely is void of all context. Paul is answering questions. Now, concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me. Now let me address your questions that you have for me, is what Paul's saying. It is good for a man not to touch a woman. That's not a command. That's not a command here. Okay, so I have more videos coming. Again, I know that these are going to bring questions. I know that I'm breaking in societal and cultural constructs, as it should, because the Bible wasn't written for Americans. Okay, it was written in the Mediterranean, in ancient Near East, and we have to understand that culture to understand the context, to understand what the Bible is telling us. So anyway, stay away from Kim. I need to tell you this. It's not like a simple mistake. It is clear. It's stupidity and carelessness, and God is clearly blinding him. I just have to call it out. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next upcoming video. Thanks so much for watching.